So this is a super fancy picture that I found for free on the internet, but let's go to the next slide. So who am I? So my name's Sarah Rich, and I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. So if you are from LA, I guess we're arch enemies now because of the Super Bowl. I did not wear my Bengals shirt on purpose today, but I live here in Cincinnati. I grew up in Ohio. Like Charlie said, I went to University of Cincinnati, and I'll talk a little bit about my education and career path in a moment. But I'm currently a director at LabCorp Drug Development, which is used to be Covance, if anyone's heard of it. And I live here with my husband, Jason, and my daughter, Annabelle, who's almost 7. And this is my headshot where he photoshopped out all of my gray hair. But I actually love my gray hair. So anyway, I know I'm speaking to a super educated group of folks about science fields, but I thought it might be worth it to start with some of the basics. So what is clinical research? Just to make sure we're all on the same page. And clinical research is a piece of healthcare science that looks at the safety and effectiveness of medication and treatment for humans. And it takes laboratory science, so bench science done with a molecule, and it matches up preclinical trial science, so trials done in animals, and it moves that science into human research subjects. So when we talk about clinical research, we're talking about human research subjects. And we want to see if drugs or devices are safe, effective, and better than what's already on the market. Just a quick overview of clinical trials 101. So like I said, we're wanting to know, is it safe? So early phase trials, phase 1 trials, we're testing it on a small number of patients to see if the drug is safe. Then phase 2, we're testing it on a larger number of patients to see if it works. We're looking at the efficacy of the drug. Phase 3 is a really large number of patients, and we're testing, is it better than what's currently on the market? And then we go for FDA approval. And after you get FDA approval, that's when we do our long-term safety follow-up. So that's, sometimes thousands and thousands and thousands of patients, and we're doing long-term follow-up on the drugs. So that's just kind of a quick overview of clinical trials and clinical research. But so who am I? Where do I come from? And like Charlie said, I have a non-traditional path to clinical research. I went to the University of Cincinnati and I got a Bachelor of Arts and I majored in communication. When I was in college, I worked a bunch of jobs, to pay for school and living. Worked at the mall, coffee shop, was a nanny at a church. And after college, I didn't really have anything that I wanted to do. Didn't have a burning passion for any career, actually. And I worked at a software startup company and it was super boring. It was not meaningful work. And after a while, I just realized there was no future there. And a friend of mine had a sister who worked in clinical research, and her friend was hiring for an admin position. And I thought, seems like there's a lot of future in clinical research, a lot of places I can go from what I know. So I'm going to make the switch and move on over to a CRO. So what is a CRO? And that is a clinical research organization. And a CRO is a company who specializes in managing clinical trials. It's pretty much all we do. We might do other things, but the biggest part of our business is running clinical trials. And we are hired by pharmaceutical companies to do that. Some of those pharmaceutical companies are really small. They might only have 6 or 7 employees and one very special molecule that they own, that they want to test, and they don't have the time or expertise to do that themselves, so they hire it out to us. And some really big pharmaceutical companies hire it out to us as well, the Amgens, Bayers, the Pfizers, and they do that because it's cheaper in the long run. CROs have so many experts, streamlined processes, and it's just easier to hire it out. But one of the main reasons those large companies hire CROs is because it gives them a lot of flexibility with their strategic direction. If a drug isn't effective and they have to stop testing it, they don't have to lay off 200 people in their clinical research testing department. They don't have to lay off permanent employees and pay benefits to them. They can just adjust their contract with the CRO. And working for a CRO because of this is incredibly stable, because we have so many studies, hundreds and hundreds of studies that the large CROs run. So if one study ends because maybe the drug didn't work, or the pharmaceutical company sells their drug to another company that wants to go in a different direction, you're just assigned to another job, another project, another study. So there's always work to do, and you just get moved around if you need to. So what was my career path? So I started in that administrative position as a clinical trial assistant, and it was a very administrative role. I took meeting minutes, I wrote memos for our doctor sites, I filed things, but I really put a lot of effort into my job. And after about 1.5 years, I was offered a position in a training program to become a clinical research associate, a CRA. And it is difficult to get a position as a CRA without a science degree. I consider this a really pivotal moment in my life. But I was given that position because my colleagues knew that I was a hard worker. I had a lot of initiative. I had a lot of urgency. And I was a smart cookie. You don't have to have a science degree to be pretty smart. So I joined this 6-month training program to become a CRA. And what CRAs do is they travel the world and they audit studies at doctors' offices and hospitals. So all of those clinical trials that are being conducted at hospitals by doctors, at practices by doctors, you have to have someone come and look at the data and make sure that it's all being done correctly. So I would go through, giant patient charts of medical records and make sure that the patient qualified for the trial, make sure that every adverse event the patient recorded or shared with the site is actually documented in our database so that we can track it. I'd make sure that the drug they gave the patient was, in good condition, not expired, the right amount. You make sure that the drug is being stored appropriately, that lab kits are being stored appropriately. You basically go to the site and you function as an auditor, and you work really closely with the doctors on site and also the clinical research staff in that role. And so I did that for 6 or 7 years, traveled all over America. It was super fun. Traveled all over North America, actually. I was young, single, and just wanted to travel and visit all my friends, because you work a full day, but after that you have the whole early afternoon and an evening to visit family in town or go to tourist attractions, go hiking, go shopping. It was a really fun time to travel all over North America. And I'm almost a million miler, but right before I hit that milestone, I decided I wanted to be done with traveling. I got married, I wanted to have a kid, didn't want to be on the road all the time. And I was tired of being traveling all the time. And then also I was ready for more responsibility. So as a CRA, I managed all of my sites, but I was ready to manage programs, projects. And so I was promoted to be a project manager, where I provided oversight to clinical trials, global clinical trials. And I really picture a project manager as an orchestra conductor. You kind of sit there and you keep all of these people around you, the safety specialist, the medical monitor, physician, the clinical trial manager managing the sites, the biostatistician, the data manager. You keep all of these people in tune, on time, going in the same direction. And you work really closely with the client to do that. And I did that for 6 or 7 years. And then last January, I decided to become a program director, where instead of managing 2 or 3 clinical trials, I would manage larger programs and provide oversight to the project managers. I would help them with really sticky problems. I would serve as a point of escalation for the client, work as a problem solver, and just kind of help take my knowledge and expertise and share it with other people. And I did that for about 9 months. And I had an epiphany last year that I thought I was ready to leave delivery. And we consider delivery, the clinical delivery of a clinical trial to a pharmaceutical company client. I decided it was time to leave delivery and move over to people management. In my time as a program director, I realized that what I really loved was providing guidance to people that were new in their career and helping teach them. So I moved over to an early talent identification program that we have here at LabCorp Drug Development called the PM Academy. And we take people that are new to research and we train them how to be project managers. And not only do I manage my 20 project coordinators, but I also recently was promoted to help run the department, the entire PM Academy department with a couple of my colleagues. So that's been a really exciting development in the last month or so. But so that's my career path. And I thought you guys might be interested in what the pay looks like for these roles. I know that if I were sitting in college, I would want to know, all right, so this sounds great that you have a very meaningful job and you like it, but how much do you get paid? So what I did is I went to Glassdoor for a different CRO. These are not numbers from my company. And I pulled some averages. And as with all averages, some of them are right and some of them are wrong. There will be people who are paid less and there will be people who are paid more. And I can tell you that for all of the averages I'm about to show you, I have been paid less in one or two, and I have been paid more in others. So for a clinical trial assistant, which is a very entry-level position, you could expect to be paid around $30,000 or $40,000. Back in 2005, for my first job, I was paid significantly less than that, and it was a huge bummer. Then when you move into that clinical research associate role, you can expect to make between $60,000 and $140,000 a year. And again, it depends on your experience. Are you a brand new CRA or are you a senior CRA with a lot of experience and a lot of education? And these are people that work at a CRO. So some CRAs will set up an LLC and they'll contract themselves out short-term to companies. And really, contract CRAs, the sky's the limit with what they can be paid. I would say there is no limit. So then project management, when you move into the project manager role, depending on where you start, a PM1 is very different than a senior PM. You can be paid around, $70,000 to $150,000 a year, depending on your level of experience. When you go to a program director, probably an average is around 140 to 175. And again, you can make a little more, a little less, depending on where you work, what the environment was like when you were hired. Was it a really tight market where they were just throwing money at people to get you to work there? If that's the case, congratulations, that's ideal. But it just kind of depends on all that. And then as a director, you can probably expect to make around 170 to 225. And I didn't bother looking up the future ones because really there's a lot of places you could go. But let's see, let's talk about some of the places where you can start. So we've talked a lot about working at a CRO, but it is not the only place you can work and be involved in research. You can work directly for the pharmaceutical company, so the people developing the drug or the device. You can work for a doctor's office, a clinic, hospital in a clinical setting and be patient-facing. And in that, you could work as the physician, principal investigator, the clinical research staff. You could work for a CRO like I did, and we'll talk more about that in depth on the next slide. You could work for FDA or another ethics review board where you help provide oversight to programs and companies. Or you could work for a third-party vendor, a research adjacent field, like a research laboratory, a database company where you help collect all the data for our patients. You could work for a statistical consulting company, help write protocols or analyze study results, or, a place of the future is a home health company. We are steering away from asking patients to come to a doctor's office every week to have their blood pressure taken and tell us if they had a headache. We could do that over the phone. We could send a nurse to their home to take their blood pressure. So it's called decentralized trials. And it's something that we're really excited about. So if you wanted to work for a CRO though, what would that look like if you were coming out of college? And we have a couple of different levels that you can start at depending on what you bring with you to the table. So if you are an entry-level person and you don't have clinical experience, so you're not a nurse, you weren't a clinical research coordinator at a site, or you don't have a science degree, you could probably expect to come in as a clinical trial assistant. And again, as an admin position, you assign study training, create memos, take meeting minutes, and that would be someplace that you could start with very little experience. It would be a little harder to get the next position, an in-house CRA role, without a science degree, but it is possible depending on your experience and sometimes who you know. And an in-house CRA basically does all of the things that our traveling CRAs do. They just do it from home. So they follow up with the sites about data entry. They collect documents from them. They bug them about enrolling patients. Now, if you were coming into the field with clinical experience, so you were a nurse or you were a clinical research coordinator at a physician's office, or you have a science degree, you could come in possibly as a traveling CRA. So we've talked a little bit about that. Someone who travels worldwide to audit patients involved in clinical trials. Or you could consider this project coordinator role, serving as a junior PM in an advanced development program. And just to go back, I started as CTA, went to a CRA, then to a PM. But this project coordinator route really allows you to completely skip the CRA portion of the job. And we, in this early talent identification program, we teach you how to be a project manager without having that on-site experience. But we're looking for people with relevant experience or a science degree to do that. And then as you move up the career ladder, you could be a clinical trial manager where you manage those CRAs that are traveling and you manage all of the sites at a study level. You could be the project manager like I was, who's the orchestra conductor, then the project director who provides that oversight to programs. So where do physicians fit in within a CRO? And spoiler alert, they are everywhere because you really can't conduct research without having physicians involved. You are going to find them in the principal investigator role. So not only at physician practices and hospitals, but a lot of CROs have patient units where they see patients in their CRO practice. And we need physicians to function as principal investigators there. We have medical monitors who, those are physicians who provide their expertise on day-to-day operations for a study. So if a CRA, comes to a medical monitor and says, hey, my site has this patient and I think they fit the inclusion criteria, but they have a really weird lab, readout. Can you help me understand if this patient actually fits the criteria for the study? Or if you are writing your protocol for your study and you want physician insight on what kind of patients we want to enroll, how healthy do we want them to be, the medical monitor provides that expertise to data operations. And CRAs, CTMs, PMs, project directors all work very closely with the medical monitor. And then moving up the ladder a little bit, we have medical directors, and those are more experienced physicians who provide strategic leadership to departments, decide where we're going to go. And then another role is called a medical science liaison, an MSL. And those are physicians who their primary job is to travel around to key opinion leaders and get to know them, get to know what they want to, how they want to treat their patients, what's on the forefront, what's coming from a physician's side, and also share with the physicians what's coming from the pharmaceutical side as well. And what would it look like in these roles that we've talked about to work with physicians? So if you were that clinical research associate, that traveling CRA, you're going to work really closely with the doctors at your investigator sites. At every visit, every time you go to the site, you're going to meet with the physician and talk about how their patients are doing, how enrollment's going, any trends that they're seeing, any concerns that they might have. And then you're also going to work really closely with the medical monitor assigned to your study, because you're going to have a lot of contact about patients qualifying for your study. Then when you move up to that CTM, PM, PD role, you're still going to work very closely with the medical monitor, and you'll also work closely with the medical director at your pharmaceutical company client, or the chief medical officer there, the people that are steering the direction for strategy of the pharmaceutical company. And like I said, physicians play a really important role in all research adjacent fields. So pretty much no matter where you go, if you're working in research, you're going to be working alongside doctors. We talked a lot about the clinical side, and that's what we at a CRO consider clinical, patient-facing, site-facing, doctor-facing, but we also have some non-clinical roles that still really, really are helpful when you come to them with a science degree. You could work in data management. You could work in safety, where we evaluate the safety of our drugs. You could work in regulatory. It may not surprise you to know that there are approximately 7 billion documents for every clinical trial, and regulatory helps manage that. You could work in statistics, help write a protocol, help analyze data from the study at the end of it. And then what are the benefits of working at a CRO? So I'm going to start off with the really meaningful one. Making a difference in patients' lives every day is pretty amazing. When I worked as a CRA, I primarily worked in cardiology. I worked on dermatology studies, arthritis, inflammation, and it felt good to do that job. I felt like I was making a difference. But when I moved into the project management role, I started working in early phase oncology. So these are really the sickest of the sick patients. These are people that have no more places to go to find care. All of the approved drugs on the market have failed them, and they're hoping for a miracle with our drug. And moving into early phase oncology studies was what made me realize just how impactful this career is. And looking at every patient coming across my desk who is just a number, patient 001, patient 002, but a very important person to me. So that's the big one. But what are some of the more casual benefits? First one is you get to work from home in almost all these positions. I haven't worked in an office in 15 years, and it's awesome. I put on a professional looking shirt today for you, but I'm wearing slippers and yoga pants underneath my desk, and that's pretty much every day in my house. You do your laundry, throw your dinner in the crock pot, and you just really manage your own time. I'm doing this presentation today, and that's fine. I just blocked out time on my calendar. Then if you work as a CRA, like, you just got to say it, you get to travel the world on your company's dime, and it's amazing. You stay in nice hotels, you enjoy room service if you want it, you get to explore when you're not working. I traveled so much that on every flight after a year or so, I was in first class. If there was a first class on the plane, I was in first class. They would just bump me up, and you get to keep all of your airline miles. So, when I got married, we flew to Italy for a few weeks, first class for free. The perks are awesome. And then for all of you female identifying folks on the line, I just want to call this out. This industry is super female friendly. I have only ever had female managers. The great majority of my colleagues are women. And what does that mean? It means the people around you understand what it's like to be a working mother. When I wanted to get married and start a family, there was a way for me to transition away from traveling. I wasn't stuck in a role I didn't want to be in. There was a lot of option for me. And having so many working mother colleagues means that if my kid's sick and I have to miss a meeting, there's just a level of understanding. Or if they hear someone singing, "We don't talk about Bruno" in the next room, they get it. And that means a lot to my work-life balance. So how do you get into clinical research? And really, a 4-year science degree is highly preferred. A science degree will grease the wheels where other degrees won't. But you don't always need higher education. I would say the higher up you go in a company, the more likely you're to find someone with a master's degree or a PhD or a medical degree of some sort, but it's definitely not required. And then being able to start at the bottom and work your way up. So that means if you think you might want to do this, do it in the first few years after college, because it can be hard to transfer in from a different field above entry level. A PM at a life insurance company or a marketing company is really different from what I did as a PM at a CRO. My job was very technical, very medical focused, and it's being able to work your way up means that you really get a lot of those skills kind of baked in. And then I'm not sure where you folks are in your college career, if you're early or if you're late in your career. So some of this might not be applicable to you, but studying research in college is always great, or getting a clinical research certificate helps you stand out. Getting a part-time job at a physician's practice, working in their research department, having any type of experience is always helpful. And this, I give a version of this presentation to high school students sometimes, and I always include this slide, and I almost thought about not including it for you folks, but the next couple of slides, it probably is helpful no matter what. So what qualities do you need to be successful in research? Well, number one, we want you to be detail oriented. We rely on quality data as a foundation, and we want people who care about details. We want people who are self-starters, who have initiative and have a sense of urgency to really drive things forward. And then we want you to be a people person. In every single role that we've talked about today, you will be working with a large amount of different people, and being able to handle all those different personalities gracefully is very helpful. And then finally, having a desire to really help change the world. We are on the cutting edge of medical discovery and research. Cures for all sorts of terrible diseases are around the corner. And when you work in clinical research, you get to be on the forefront of all of that. And it's pretty amazing. And then finally, this is another one that I almost didn't include, but probably it might be helpful. How to get ahead in any job. So, I have a non-traditional path to my career. And because I don't have a science degree, I do have to work a little bit harder than others to understand protocols, to understand the therapeutic background of some of the drugs that I'm working on. But how did I get to where I am? And I did this by never saying that's not my job. At the beginning, everything was my job. If I was being asked, I was going to do it, because learning and getting that experience is pretty invaluable. be reliable, be on time. You know, Charlie and I were kind of chatting before this meeting about how important it is to be reliable and be on time. You know, if you say you're going to do something, do it, show up. And hand in hand with that is being trustworthy, being honest. This is a small field. Every job I've ever gotten, I have known a significant amount of people at the new job that I've worked with before. And being trustworthy and being honest is really a key value. And then finally, work hard. When you're at work, be at work, give it your all, but definitely don't work so hard that you forget to live your life, because, you know, I work so that I can enjoy my life. I love my job, but I love my time with my family and my friends. I love that even more. And I really appreciate that my job offers me a work-life balance where I can work, you know, 40 to 50 hours a week and be paid and compensated really fairly for that time. Occasionally, there will be weeks where things are crazy and I might have to put in a little extra time, but many weeks, you know, depending on what job I'm in, I've only worked 40, 45 hours a week. Now that I'm a director, I'm working a little bit more than that, but I'm okay with that because I'm putting in my time, putting in the effort to get the experience. But my work-life balance is really important to me. And this is a field that if you know how to set your own boundaries, your work-life balance can really work for you. So that's the end of my presentation. I wanted to give a call out and say, I would love to chat with any of you guys after today about your career aspirations, about coming into research, what that might look like. And really, I will make time to chat with you because I really value those conversations that I get to have with people emerging into their careers. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I guess I'm just one of 50 Sarah Riches. It's a pretty common name. Or you can email me directly too. But please do. I'm not just saying that. All right. And that is the end of my presentation.
That's great. Thank you, Sarah. Really great presentation on not just career opportunities and what clinical research looks like, but also work-life balance and how that works for you, which is really important. And we encourage our students to think about that as well. So with that, absolutely, this is Q&A time. We have about 25 minutes remaining. And so we can do this a couple of ways. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording. I know in past students have asked you know, that we do that. So I'm going to go ahead and shut off the recording, and I'll let you know that it will be available via our YouTube channel. So you can share this with friends. You can come back and watch it whenever is right for you. But with that, I'll go ahead and stop.